Welcome back to From Corporate to Cash Flow. We're Andrea Cannon and Liz Schwab, two pharmacists navigating the process of building time and financial freedom through real estate investing and lending while working our day jobs. Navigating the journey is difficult, but our podcast guests are experts in showing us how it's done. And today we have Shinyi Telscher. Shinyi, thanks so much for joining us.
I'm so excited. Thank you for having me here today. And I'm going to correct you. Today we have three pharmacists, not just two. I'm also a pharmacist. Yay. Thank you
This
for
is the
having me.
most exciting intro ever. You're the most excited guest, so thank you. So I was actually going to say we're very excited to have another healthcare professional, so thank you for pointing that out. I think this will be very relatable to a lot of people, so we definitely appreciate having you on and answering these questions that we have. So the first thing here is we would love to hear about your journey into real estate. So maybe focusing on, your corporate job, and then how did you become interested in real estate, and how has that kind of like evolved to what you're focusing on now?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me. So I started with just a regular 9 to 5 worker, like many of us. You're so excited, you're out of school, you got your first job, and yes, I can start making a lot of money. And you got your first job, start working your 9 to 5. You're like, it's a lot of work. I'm usually pretty tired when I get home. There's really not much time over the weekend. And you kind of get into the phase that, you know what, I start building a family. Now I have my kids. I want to keep them, at the center of my focus. I want to reserve more time with them. So you start kind of brainstorming, how can I create a future for them? Like basically start building wealth for them so they don't have to work, hopefully, not like 9 to 5 job like I'm doing every day and just kind of clock in and out. So it started with, I have a job, really good paying job. I'm very grateful for it, but I'm looking for additional side income, side hustle, so I can start building wealth for my family. So then I started looking to, what can I do whilst I have a job? Maybe once I clock out, I can start invest something more passive, right? So that kind of led me into buying our first rental property. That's back in 2019. Just become a landlord because that seems easy, right? Become a landlord, just buy a house, rent it to somebody else, make the difference. So that's my first investment property. But a couple years later on, you start learning a different type of strategy and then pivot into different avenue, and then start learning to what you like to do, what you don't like to do. So I definitely have a lot of lessons that I can share with the audience today, what to do, what not to do.
Those are our favorites. I speak for Andrea, my bad. It's definitely my favorite. I love getting that advice, and every time someone's like, "Oh, I started with this investment property and I've learned a lot," is it that you hated being a landlord? Just kidding, because that's what I learned. So okay. So anyways, thank you for that. So I know you talked a little bit about how you became interested in it. So can you tell us what you're doing in real estate now?
Yeah, so we started with buying single family home with long term rental because that seems to be a little bit easier to get onto because it's semi passive. It's not completely passive, but if you are good at buying right, you are good at crunching the number, which all of us are do as we become a pharmacist. We're pretty good at math, so I'm buying very conservatively. I know how much I can make, and every month how much I have to pay for the mortgage, how much you can rent it for. So that's your spread, right? So you're kind of calculating the spread, how much you want to make for your rental property. So my first rental property was a 4 plus, a 4 unit. So I start with a 4 unit because at the time I don't think making single family one by one making a lot of sense, just because it's a lot of work to maintain a house making a couple $100. So I start with getting into small multi-units, so to speak, if that makes sense. But I bought it traditionally, meaning I had to save out 25% as investment property to get into that. So it's a pretty heavy entry. But I'm glad I did it because that's our first one. I learned a lot through managing that property that kind of taught me how to become a good landlord, how to look for the right investment property to buy that's going to be a good long-term rental. So the first thing I look forward to is location. Location is very important for me because that's the only one thing you cannot change. Everything else you can change, but location you cannot change. So definitely buying a good location and look at more closer to the future appreciation more than the monthly cash flow. So I quickly learned that to make a couple $100 per unit each rental, it's not going to get you to where you want to go fast enough. So you're looking into buying in the right location so you can hopeful to hold the house for a longer term. That built out appreciation that's going to be much faster, especially for people who have a really stable W2 income. we don't really bank on that couple $100 here and there a month. We're looking at maybe after 5 years, I sell the house, I can make 100K, or maybe 10 years, I can make 200K, even save out enough for my kids' college fund, right? So I'm looking at a future appreciation more than the monthly cash flow. That's a difference since I started 2019. And then after that, I kind of save up some money. I also park money to somebody else's project. Like Andrea usually would do is you can either lend people money or you can join some sort of syndication, just another fancy way of put out your saving, park into somebody else's project you think is really great potential. So you can make both the cash flow, also sometimes they give you a future equity split you make on the equity as well. So there are multiple ways. Right now, I would say our investment strategy is more like I'm exiting the single family space, going into more commercial space. So last year, I actually condensed a lot of our single family portfolio. I sold off a lot of them. I only kept maybe 3 now. That's cash flowing really good in a great location that generate really stable monthly cash flow for me. So I'm keeping those. And they're relatively local, I would say, within an hour drive from where we are. And then the rest is just basically sort of I'm using the cash that I can, turn into a bigger deal, meaning either probably going to be larger multifamily or mobile home park. But to be honest, I haven't decided yet. Depends on where the deal goes. So
Yeah,
I
that's
uh,
that's a lot to focus on there. So, if I understand, so you had some single family homes that you're renting long term, and is it because they weren't cash flowing enough that you decided to pivot to more of the commercial route?
Well, they actually all cash really well. The lowest amount of cash flow for me is $700 per door. That's net, and the highest amount I make about $1,200 per door, like net. That's after everything expense will pay. So they're pretty good. But then you start getting into like, well, if this house gonna make me $700 a month, but if I can kind of cash out today, it has to accumulate more appreciation, right? Maybe if I sold it today, I can get a huge check cut to me, 100K. That I can then park that into another more less involvement, like more passive kind of deal, right? Or I can use that to buy maybe another asset that's going to be like close to $1 million worth. If I can park another 200K to $1 million worth of asset, you kind of scale up faster. So I'm kind of crunching the number, like, does it make sense for me to have that 200K equity lock into the house, making only $700 a month? Or would it make sense for me to cash that out and park it into a bigger asset? I can be more hands off and also make more future appreciation. It's about the future appreciation and value more than the monthly cash flow. That's where I am right now.
Yeah, and I think that's a decision that every investor needs to make, right? And
Right.
kind of evaluating their portfolio as they grow. They just continuously need to look at it and say, does this continue to make sense for like what my goals are?
Correct.
So, how does lending fit into this? Like, what percentage of your capital are you trying to lend with versus purchasing these commercials or RV parks, etc.?
So I try to be more conservative when I lend. I like to lend some deal that's doing locally. I'll give you a few example. I don't like to lend to the places that all over the place that I don't have no control. So the first thing I have to understand is if I lend it to this person, if this person not perform, can I foreclose on them? Am I familiar with the foreclosing law in that particular area? So I don't tend to lend outside of my backyard. My backyard is Maryland, Virginia. I don't buy stuff in DC. I'm sorry, no offense, but right now it's not a good idea to own anything in DC. But anything in Northern Virginia and Maryland, I would like to. I park my money into somebody else's deal. Sometimes I do fix and flip. I'll lend it to them short term, up to 6 months, and then I know exactly how much house is worth. I know exactly how much the house is worth for after they fix it up, so I can know if my money is secure within that safety zone, what I call the equity protection. Like a lot of people try to lend money outside. It's overextended their credit, that make your money start getting more insecure because if you need to fire sell it, there's not enough value to recuperate your loss. So that's what I look at. Does that have enough equity really as is now to protect my investment, and does the borrower has any skin in the game to ensure that the project can be completed on time? If not, do they have other asset that they can sell to pay me back? So I'm looking for those. So these are pretty niche, narrow borrowed type, I usually already have experience working with, or I have past experience working with. Also, I know their buy boss. I know they have a reliable crew. They can crank out the project on time. So that's more on the, like a backyard lending, if I put it this way. So I don't tend to lend all over the place, or people who just send me a random DM. Hey, I have this project. Can I get money from your pocket? Like, no.
Yeah, no, that's super smart.
Right.
I definitely like the rules that you've made. I think that those make a ton of sense, especially the physical location. Like, am I less than an hour away of physically being able to find you and hurt you if you don't pay me back? Is like a good rule of thumb. So,
Or do a
I,
drive-by. Is the house still sitting on the lot, or is it got burned down or something? Like people
right.
nowadays, they send picture, and then you can kind of tell. Like people say, "Oh, this houses look like this," and like you look at the picture, they kind of crop it from the Google Drive, like the Google Map. You can even see the timestamp was like 2 years ago. I'm like, well, do you
Yep.
have a recent picture?
Yep.
Were you even there, or you just kind of trying to flip it virtually? And do where's your crew, who's your GC? Like I have so many questions to ask. Like, so I just found it easier to find somebody locally, so I don't drive them nuts and they don't drive me nuts.
Yeah, no, good call. That's a good call on your part for
Yeah.
sure. So, working, as a healthcare professional as well, do you think this is something that you are going to continue while you're investing, or do you hope to reach a point where you can transition full time into real estate?
Yes, that's the ultimate goal, but I would say not anytime soon. It's because I value my expertise. I actually really enjoy working my job, and serving patient, and I'm very proud of what I do as a healthcare professional. And also, having that paycheck also offer me a sense of security, so allow me to take more risk in a way, like because I can take higher risk, because knowing that if this deal didn't go through, my paycheck still coming every month is not going to affect my family's living expenses, not going to affect my kids school expenses. So their living quality, it will be semi preserved, insulated from this churn and burn real estate business. So I enjoy having a job, and then I enjoy that kind of bankable status for me to, if I need to go buy something, I can use my credit to get lending pretty quick, rather than have to rely on hard money or borrow money from somebody else. So I think that's very valuable for me.
Yeah, that it's really relatable too to both me and Liz because we both enjoy our jobs as well, and but it's nice to build along the side, right?
Correct.
So nice to have that thing going, right, in case something does happen, in case there's a shutdown that impacts you. For me, like I've lost my job multiple times in the role that I'm in as a pharmacist, and so it's nice to have that as a fallback plan in case that does happen, even if you still enjoy what you're doing. And so I love that you're doing the exact same thing that we are. That's really cool. So I
Right.
know that you've had a pretty cool journey so far, and so I'm wondering what's the biggest lesson that you've learned that you wish you knew earlier in your journey.
I wish I learned earlier is, I know it sounds cheesy. I wish read the Rich Dad Poor Dad book a little bit earlier. And I think that's a lot of people like us. Like I grew up in an Asian household that I was told just save as much as you can, study as hard as you can, get the high diploma, and you'll be all set for the rest of your life. But as you get into that job market, you quickly learn that, I don't really want to work 9 to 5 the rest of my life. And I have so much I can give, and then I can use my intelligence to help so many people. Like, what can I do to kind of solve a higher problem, the more difficult problem, to get rewarded with a higher payout, right? So, and then you kind of learn to balance the payout versus the time. Nowadays, if you ask me, like, if I would do everything differently, I will be willing to pay somebody to teach me to do it right, to save time, because I realize time is the only commodity that we all have very limited amount. Like once I use that, I don't have it anymore. So right now I learned to be more diligent how to use my time. So if I can share what I learned, I would say people should value their time more. It's good to sometimes pay or get onto somebody's coaching, or find a mentor who can teach you where you wanted to go, and get into that right circle sooner, rather than try to figure it out, go through this like free learning, because I would say I spend enough money and also go through a lot of YouTube video that is all free, and quickly learn that a lot of thing they teach on YouTube, it's just not deep enough. It's very superficial, and it's very, as you get into 3 feet deep, you're like, yeah, if I just watch that YouTube video, I will get so burned, because they only teach you super level. They don't tell you the what if, and then they don't tell you, oh my god, avoid this landmine, don't take this route. Like that, it's so valuable. I wish I would know that sooner. So now, be willing to spend extra money on my education is so valuable.
Yeah, and it's interesting because all three of us spent a lot of money on our educations to be pharmacists, and we never expected that to not be the case. But then somehow we do in real estate. I mean, at least I'm speaking for myself, maybe not for
Right.
either of you, but like I'm just like, oh, I can figure this out. Oh, I can do this, and it's like, but we spend a lot of money on our other careers, and so it's not surprising that we might have to do that as well when we're getting
Mm-hmm.
into real estate investing. And so it's a really good point to help accelerate that by, I think, probably in choosing it mindfully, right? Like making sure you're
Right.
going with the right person, because I know there's a ton of gurus and mentors and mentorships and communities and things out there that you can join, and not all of them are created equal either.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about taking the shortcut to learn with the right person, but also be smart enough to figure it out. Is that really true or not? Is that the genuine advice, or is they have some ulterior motive, like teach you something just because they're trying to sell something, right?
Yes.
But until you learn a whole bunch of different angle, it's really hard for us to figure it out unless we start learning and getting enough knowledge to look at it from all angle and kind of figure out, okay, which is the more safe way to go, because there's always shortcut, but a lot of time the cheaper way is not the best way to go. But sometimes people like to go with the cheap route and get burned and come back and spend more money because then they waste so much money making a mistake. There are a couple, I've seen people lost money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, just because a very tiny little detail of like how to secure your note, as simple as that, how to underwrite a property to make sure you're not overpaying, stuff like, if you don't know how to look at those nuances, it's really hard to just hit the deadline and just get blown out of the water. So
Yeah, that is such a good point. And thinking about how you're developing all those things in the background, right? Because you're a pharmacist, but then you're also getting good at underwriting properties, and you're figuring out all these little niches for real estate investing. And so I'm wondering if there's any habits or routines that you've developed to help you stay productive and focused on your goals in real estate, and if there's any contrast from your day-to-day job as a pharmacist.
yeah, so I've been doing a pretty good job. Still is a work in progress to time block my day. My day start pretty early, around 6:30. I usually wrap up my work at 3 p.m. So sometimes maybe longer day, sometimes it's shorter day, depends on how busy it is. But that will usually leave me about an hour lunchtime. I just kind of work while I'm going through the lunch. Like I will look at the lunch hour, I'll catch up some email, and after 3, that's when I kind of switch full on, off work, get on my second work, like my real estate gig. That's when I start cranking phone call, calling people, making offer, underwriting deals. Like from 3 to 5, sometimes to 6 o'clock is what I call the golden hour of making money on my second job. That's when I sometimes go property tour. And the other day I just went and looked at the vacant houses. I just got on a phone call a couple hours before, and then so I was like, yeah, this is the code, go check it out. So I just decided to go on that. So from 3 to 5, sometimes 3 to 6 is when I work on my second job, real estate gig. And then after that, from 6 p.m. and beyond is when I reserve that time to my family. So it's important for us to kind of block out what's important for you. Usually after 6 p.m., I just basically block that out. I don't do anything business like after 6. I might check text after kids go to sleep just to catch up, but I rarely do anything from 6 to 9. And then kind of start over again the next day. I wake up a little bit early, check on some email, and go into my work, and then real estate job after that. So it's important for people to kind of designate a time every, it could be an hour, it could be 2 hours. It's about making commitment to treat that time block as a sacred time for you to build your business, and it's non-negotiable. Like I'm sure you know, we all learn from the same mentor that it's very important for us the time block to reserve that time for ourselves and for our business.
Yeah, it sounds like you have this down super well and that it's working for you. Also, kudos to starting your workday at 6:30 in the morning because I could never. So you also have a lot of hours in the day to get a lot of things done. So good for you. Good for you. And
Mhm.
I also wanted to circle back on something that we had talked about earlier, saying that I love learning from people and what they wish they would have known earlier. So I would love to hear some of these things from you now. Just
Mhm.
examples of things in real estate, whether it be lending or your long-term rental, single to commercial, things that you know now that you wish you would have known when you first started.
Mhm. How about I use the most recent example I just learned, because I think, that would be more fresh, and then a lot of people are going through that space, which is co-living right now. A lot of people are doing co-living. Let's talk about that. Because I have a lot of deal, but I think this is a little more fresh. I can talk about a bit more because I can kind of walk through the thinking process, why I started that, why I decided to pivot, and kind of share with people like the lesson learned. So that was my first creative deal. It's a very good deal that I bought it subject to existing mortgage. So my cost to entry is really, really low. It's a one level ranch, 4 bedroom, 3 bath, and plus the garage converted space into another room. So it's totally 5 bedroom, 3 bath, one level ranch. My monthly mortgage is only $1,500 a month ish, like under $1,500 a month. So you can tell I'm like very conservative. I'm not even like funny about when people send me deals like, well, that's gonna make money. No, not really. When I say make money is if I have to net everything after take out all the expenses and all that stuff. If I can make at least $700 to $800 or plus, that's for me, it's a good deal. Anything below that, you're just kind of chance it, right? So my mortgage is $1,500. So the rent rate, long term rental in that market for this particular house, it can rent up to $3,000. So that's enough, pretty healthy spend, right? So I'm like, well, yeah, I'm not gonna lose, right? I'm getting this, like, I can make good amount of money just renting long term rental. So let me try out co-living, because co-living was pretty fancy investment strategy last year. A lot of people trying to do it. So we converted each different room. We make it all smart lock, everything ready to go, room by room by room. But then I quickly realized that I'm not very good at operating co-living. It was a pretty stunning truth for me to learn, hard pill to swallow, but I acknowledge that. The reason I'm saying is when you have a day job that's already demanding, when you have to think about renting it room by room, all of a sudden you're dealing with multiple leads by room, a lot of turn. Every time people move out and they come back in, you have to like restart the whole process. It's re-signing the lease and then all that turnover. So I quickly, it's good money, but I don't think I like the trade between the money and the time spent on the money. So I decided, I'm gonna step away from co-living. I'm gonna try to convert that into more like a long-term basis. So it was a good area in Virginia Beach, so I decided to go with midterm rental for the time being because I can rent it to a lot of senior people in that area. Sometimes they have a good insurance claim, that kind of stay. They will stay 3 to 6 months. A lot of time their house went through some sort of repair or flooding. The insurance will pay them to cover midterm stay. So I was able to rent that out throughout the time. The midterm rental, I was surprised at how much they pay for a house that size. The rent I get through midterm rental, they pay you up to $5,400 a month for that house. Yeah, insurance pay really good. But so if you think about my monthly mortgage is about 1,500, 15 to 1,400 a month. It's really a lot of money. But the bad news is that when the house is not being rented, because they're all coming as a midterm basis, right? So they could rent it 3 4 months and then they move out. My house is empty. So you basically rent out 50% a year to kind of equalize into like making the same amount, because the other half of the year you're basically empty. You're waiting for the next booking, and the next booking may or may not come. Just don't know when they can come. So I like the money, but I don't really like the vacancy part of it. And as a pharmacist, I'm like, I like that stabilization. I don't like the fluctuation too much. It's kind of hard to figure out how much you're gonna make for your bottom line. So I ultimately turned that into a still co-living, but not me managing co-living. I ended up master lease that to a nonprofit who's focused on sober living in the area. So they were able to just basically completely take over my house. They fill the room based on their relationship they built through the local treatment program. So they filled the house in a week. They told me as soon as I signed a lease with them, they literally said, hey, we have people on wait list waiting to get into the house. They already had people lined up trying to move in. That's a difference of like me trying to rent it and I really suck at it versus like people who has the right connection. They get the right people in, they manage your house, and then they rent it, like literally turn it around within a week. It's all full. So now it's like the best thing ever because I have a good in-house manager who manage the house, and they just basically pay me a lump sum of rent that we negotiated every month, and I don't worry about anything else because they take care of the repair. See, they even take care of the repair. As a landlord, you will have to fix up the house, but for a master lease, they take care of all the little tiny repair. Only things I have to be responsible for is something big break, like for example, like HVAC's not running or roof is leaking, something major. Then I will have to fix it out. Otherwise, I don't get called for toilet leak. I don't get called for faucet leak. I don't get called for anything that leak. So just like, yay. So that's why I kind of pivot this year. If people ask me, are you still buying single family home? I would say, yes, I'll consider it if that's something fit into that kind of criteria that I can master lease to a local nonprofit. Because I love helping people. That they actually put the house into really great use to house a lot of veteran in the house. But I don't have to manage the turnaround of the veteran in that sense, and then just put my house into good use. So
Yeah. No, this is so funny. So like this will relate, I promise. Stay with me. So you know when you have a job interview and someone says, "Hey, what's your weakness?" and they're like, "Oh, I just work so hard." I feel like you just did that with that story. How you're like, "Oh, I started with co-living, but then I turn in as master lease and I make thousands of dollars without doing anything." So so we learned a lesson, and then you turned it into a success story. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah, and there's a lot of like tears, like like sweat and tears. In the time that when the house is empty, you're like, I don't know, because we're still paying the mortgage. And my husband was like, "What is going on?" And I was like, "I want to rent it to people who can use this house," because I talked to him like I don't really want to just rent it as a long term because I see this house as such a potential. It's when you're in a real estate investor, you really try to look at what's going to give you the highest and best use in that area. And I kind of just foresee this as a single level ranch. It works so well for senior, or works for so well for the injured veteran who just wheelchair bound. That gives them so much flexibility to stay in the area without have to deal with a lot of stairs. So yeah, that's what the house manager ended up telling me, that a lot of people came and look at the houses and like, wow, it's so hard to get a renter at this price. And, that's how they were able to get it rented out so fast.
Yeah,
So
definitely
trust
makes
your gut.
sense.
Trust your
Yeah,
gut,
yeah.
but also fire yourself when you realize you're doing a poor job. So I quickly fire myself. Like, let's pivot.
No, it's definitely turned into a win-win, and you
Yeah.
realized when you needed to pivot. So,
Right.
I like I said, I think it's a win overall for that.
Yeah.
And I also have another question for you. So, you said something that I think many of us can relate to. So, growing up, our parents like, "Hey, go get good grades, go get a diploma, go get a good degree, go save your money," right? But with time, many of us realized that maybe there were some other financial um, goals and strategies that would have made more sense. So my question to you is for someone that's starting like their financial independence journey, maybe they're newer, fresh out of college or are starting to learn, what type of advice would you give them in about like 30 seconds
30 seconds. Okay.
or longer?
Hmm. Well, I will probably start with what is the job that I can get myself pay to reasonably pay myself living expense plus some extra, so I have some more freedom to look for a second job. So what I'm looking for is people who there's different type of job, right? Some job pay you really well, but you kind of work like 10 hours a day. You don't really have enough time for yourself or to improve. I would say look for the job that will pay you well enough to establish stability for your family, but offer you some flexibility that you can pick up the second hustle, like hustle on the side. That's what I'm looking for. And that would be a good gauging point to figure out what to take on.
Yeah, I think you and I kind of approached the entry into pharmacy similarly. Like when I was thinking about did I want to become a pharmacist, I was like, well, if
Mm,
my husband died or like I got a divorce, if I needed to provide for my family, like would I be able to do it? I don't even have any kids. I was thinking about this at 16. Like this is
mm-hmm.
I was going through, right? And it's
Right,
like foundation has caused it's been so stable. It's been very, very nice to have that, and then you can build from there, right? And so I think
right.
that's a really good point. So transitioning to something fun. So Liz and I both love traveling, getting outside, exploring the outdoors, having fun along the way, along while we're building wealth, just making sure we're enjoying it and not waiting until retirement. So wondering if you have any upcoming bucket list travel that you're hoping to accomplish in the next year or so.
Absolutely. We would love to go back to, I'm sure you're from Utah, right? Before you decide to move into Nevada. I would love to take my kids back to do the Utah 5 road trip again. I did that one time. It was just so gorgeous. That's before I had my first kid. So we always love road tripping, like RVing, stuff like that. I would love to take my kids back. And the other one is I used to be a climber and also backpacker and hiker, long distance hike. I would love to take my kids back to White Mountain again in New Hampshire. There's what we call a hut to hut hike. You basically get onto the ridge, you just hike from one hut to the other. You just piggybacking from one peak to another. So I would like to take them back to, once my kids old enough, maybe 2 3 years later, they should be able to pick up their own backpack and just hike with us. Yeah,
I love
again.
those are great options. Like Utah
Hmm.
5 are such good parks, and it's
Yeah.
I didn't even know. I mean, like, good for you. I didn't really know like a ton about Utah before I moved there back in 2015, and definitely didn't know about the national parks. And so I'm
Hmm.
always super impressed when everyone else is aware because I definitely was
Yeah,
not. I
it was
know.
so fun. Yeah, I
Yeah,
found the most joy when I hike, especially like hiking by myself. Like I used to go out like backpacking like 3 weeks straight nonstop, like just like in the mountain, like pitch a tent in the wilderness when the bear walk by. I can hear them at night. But that's back in the day when you're, before the kids came along. But right now I'm more responsible now. So we have a little RV. We drag around. So we're in the hard shell. Everybody's protected. Yeah. But
love
yeah,
it.
that's why I want to bring them, with us for the next few years. And in terms of like traveling overseas, I would love to go back to Iceland again. So that's on the bucket list to go back there again.
I love Iceland. Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Oh, these are
Mhm.
wonderful. Well, if someone wants to work with you,
Mhm.
collaborate with you, bring deals to you, what are you looking for? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah, I would love to, do some fix and flip in my market, in Maryland or Northern Virginia. So, if people wanted to collaborate together or JV together on some of the local fix and flip project, I'm open to that. I don't necessarily wanted to hold those houses anymore, but it's my way of like kind of build that more reserve to get into a bigger deal. My ultimate goal is trying to get my first commercial deal. It could be another small multifamily 20 units or plus, or a mobile home park in the Pennsylvania or Virginia, Maryland side on the East Coast, within an hour drive from where we live. That's where I look at it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Hmm.
And then if they have any of those things to bring to you, what would be the best way to get in touch with you?
They can just DM me on Instagram, just at Shinyi Telscher, how I spell my name, at Shinyi Telscher. Then I will respond to them in messages through Instagram.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Well, I have really loved having you on. It's been so fun to have another
Mhm.
pharmacist because that's really cool. We've had PAs, we've had physical therapists, we've had some other healthcare professionals, but it's super exciting to have a pharmacist. And I always love your enthusiasm. It's so good to see you, and we appreciate you being on here. So thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And then thank you everyone else for listening to this week's episode of From Corporate to Cash Flow. We will catch you next week. Hey, it's Andrea. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you liked it, I'd love it if you hit subscribe. Thanks so much.